Mr. Barnier warned both short or lengthy delays to Britain's EU exit will come with a number of repercussions on both sides of the Channel. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator said leaders would have to think very carefully before granting the Prime Minister an extension to the bloc's Article 50 exit clause. He pushed Britain towards a soft Brexit or rerun of the EU referendum as the price for agreeing a lengthy delay between leaders on Thursday. Mrs. May is expected to inform her European counterparts of her desires ahead of a crunch European Council summit on Thursday, during which the remaining 27 leaders will decide on the strategy. Mr. Barnier's comments suggest that Brussels is ready to push the Prime Minister towards a second Brexit referendum, by suggesting Mrs. May would need a new event to garner the support of leaders for the delay. Speaking after EU27 meeting of European Affairs Ministers, Mr. Barnier told reporters, "I am not here to discuss the possible duration of a possible extension. I am here to talk to ministers, to ask a legitimate question on behalf of the EU authorities: why do you want an extension? An extension has to be useful." Mrs. May is said to be pondering over whether to request a long or short extension after a fiery cabinet meeting in Westminster. Mr. Barnier maintained that a delay must be linked to a new political idea or theory, such as changing the course of the Prime Minister's Brexit strategy. Michel Barnier hints Article 50 delay leads to soft Brexit. Image EBS, he said, "My feeling is that a longer extension needs to be linked to something. There needs to be a new event, a new political process." The official added, "Will the UK request an extension because it wants more time to rework the political declaration? This political declaration, which sets out the framework of our future relations, could be made more ambitious in the coming days if a majority in the House of Commons so wishes. If not, what would be the purpose and the outcome of an extension, and how could we be sure that at the end of a possible extension we are not back in the same situation as today?" Mr. Barnier's suggestion hints towards an EU strategy to use a lengthy delay to push a soft Brexit, second referendum or no Brexit at all. EU leaders will expect Mrs. May to hold so-called indicative votes to determine what solutions can garner support, according to a source familiar with the Brexit talks. The source added that Britain would also have to commit to holding EU elections by July 1 and promise to act in good faith as an EU member under the terms of any Article 50 delay. Jean-Claude Juncker, the European Commission President, is said to have told Mrs. May that she would be required to display to Brussels that she has a Commons majority for fresh Brexit direction during the extension. Ahead of Mrs. May's second meaningful vote on the Brexit deal, the Prime Minister warned MPs, "But let me be clear, voting against leaving without a deal and for an extension does not solve the problems we face. The EU will want to know what use we mean to make of such an extension. This House will have to answer that question. Does it wish to revoke Article 50? Does it want to hold a second referendum? Or does it want to leave with a deal but not this deal?" Mr. Barnier's intervention, however, fails to remove the possibility of a no-deal Brexit, which is still illegal certainty on March 29 unless Mrs. May signs up to EU leaders' demands. The EU negotiator said, "Voting against no deal doesn't prevent it happening." He urged EU member states to continue the contingency planning for a hard Brexit ahead of the UK's official departure date in just 10 days' time. "Everyone should now finalise all preparations for a no-deal scenario. On the EU side we are prepared," he said. Mrs. May's de facto deputy, David Lidington, has been in Brussels holding discussions with senior figures, including Mr. Barnier, Guy Verhofstadt, the EU Parliament's Brexit coordinator, and Simon Coveney, the Irish deputy Prime Minister. A UK government spokesman said, "Given the crucial stage we are at in EU exit discussions, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster is speaking with his European counterparts to provide an update on the latest state of play ahead of European Council later in the week." Mr. Coveney said, "If there's going to be a request for a long extension, then there will need to be a very persuasive plan to go with that to explain why that's needed and how they'll use the time to conclude the outstanding issues that haven't been able to be agreed." In London, in the context of the Brexit process, Brussels have bemoaned the lack of clarity from London after Commons Speaker John Bercow blocked the Prime Minister holding another vote on her Brexit deal. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said, "I admit that I wasn't on top of the British Parliament's 17th-century procedural rules, so I acknowledged what took place yesterday. Now, we'll have to see what Theresa May tells us, what her demands are, and we will try to react."